All right, let's call this meeting to order. Thank you everyone for joining. The first item is the this is the rules. Do you want to go over them?
Yeah, we have a new rule.
Please
you gotta
go
love
over them.
it. Just for the next couple months, when meeting virtually for open meetings, we do need to announce that we are meeting virtually and share with the group where we are participating from. So I will go through roll call, and if you could just state your full name, that you are participating remotely, and where that is from, and it can be a generic city or county and the state that you're in for the record. Mr. Baldwin?
Jim Baldwin, Grand Rapids, Michigan, participating remotely.
Great. Mr. Beal?
Sean Beal from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I am participating remotely.
Mayor Bliss?
Rosalind Bliss, participating virtually here in the city of Grand Rapids.
Ms. Bootson?
Eliana Bootson, participating virtually in the city of Grand Rapids.
Ms. Deering?
Pedro Deering, participating virtually in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Ms. Dunn?
I'm Dunn, participating remotely, Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Ms. Geitzen? I thought I saw her on here. Maybe not. Mr. Kelly. Carl Kelly. No. And Mr. Royce is not with us. Mr. Talon. Oh.
Oh, sorry, my mic was off. Jim Talon, participating remotely from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Great, and I believe Ms. Geitzen is on.
Yeah, Jane Geetson, participating remotely from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Great, thank you. And then Mr. Wynn.
This is Rick Wynn, joining remotely from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. The first item of business on our agenda is the approval of the minutes, and these minutes are from our last meeting, which has been a while. It was back on June 10 from 2020. So I hope you've had a chance to review them. If so, I would entertain a motion.
This is I'm Dunn, move approval.
Support
Jim
Deering.
Baldwin,
Thank you. Are there any questions? If not, do we verbally give our approval, or how do you do it? Roll call?
Yeah, no, we'll just ask if there's anyone that opposes
Okay,
or would like to abstain.
thank you. Does anyone oppose or want to abstain from approval of the minutes? All right, hearing none, the minutes are approved. The second item on our agenda is the approval of the January financials. And
we have Ms. Chapman, who some of the DDA members, or all the DDA members, have met, but for those that are just on the TIFA, she is taking Jana Wallace's place. So Tricia is helping guide us through the financials for all of the DGRI fiduciary reports.
thank you, Tricia.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim. Good morning. My name is Tricia Chapman. I've been with the city of Grand Rapids for a little over 21 years now, mostly in the comptroller's office. Just recently took over Jana Wallace's job. I've been doing it on an interim basis for a little while. So I am a little bit familiar with what goes on with all the DGRI authorities, and getting more and more familiar as I start diving into what's happening here. Your interim financial statements for FY21 are through January. If you have any questions or anything, please let me know. I can hopefully answer them right away. or would be able to get back to you. We did pay our final payment on that contract to Kent County Drain Commission for the flood wall bonds, so you'll no longer be seeing that obligation out there. If there are no questions, I would need a motion to approve Statement C, which serves as your warrant.
This is Eliana Bootson. I'd like to ask a couple of questions. Well, first of all, welcome. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining us. I was a little confused on the loss of investment and wanted to check whether that was a withdrawal from the account or whether the city's investment pool has in fact lost principal.
No, we have not lost principal. What that is each year we are required to do an entry at the end of the year to bring all investments up to market value. And the city recently changed its investment policy within like the last 3 years, I would say. We now are able to invest in much longer term investments. So at June 30, when all of our investments are brought up to whatever market value they are on June 30, that entry reverses on July 1st. And typically throughout the year, you would tend to make that reversal up. But as our city treasurer has invested in longer and longer investments that won't mature for like 20 years or more, you're going to see a negative result from that reversal until June 30, when the new entry goes in to bring all the investments to that current June 30's balance. And I did just talk actually yesterday with the city's investment analyst to make sure that we really were on track, that he believes all of our investments, will have a positive markup at the end of the year, and they are. It won't be quite as large as it was last year, at least as things are trending right now, but it will be a pretty large markup. So you'll see that investment earning go positive by the end of the year.
That's very helpful. Thank you. I do have more questions, but I will defer to Jim.
Hey, hi everyone. Wanted to ask, I'm not sure who would have the answer to this, but wanted to ask about the flood wall debt. 2008, it looks like 12 years is an odd time frame. Wondered if those had been reissued or refinanced at some point.
They were refinanced, refunded actually. I believe the original issue was 2002, 2003, something like that.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
So this is Eliana Bootson again, and just noticing that we haven't spent down a larger percentage of many of the administrative items, wondering if we are up to date on billing or if we're going to see some of that pop in the next time.
I can jump in on one of those. So for the expense side for administration, the TIFA has not done the payroll reallocation yet. So the DDA is still carrying the administrative bills for the TIFA, at least on the staff support personnel. So that will eventually be brought up to date, as will some of the other items in the expenses. So yeah, good question.
Fantastic, thank you. And the last one I think is more operational, so maybe better addressed after we approve the financials, but making sure we do have plans in place to achieve spending on the remainder of the budget, as Jana had encouraged us multiple times to make sure that we do spend down these assets, as that is what they are for.
Indeed,
good reminder. Thank you.
Today. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
It's okay. Thank you, Eliana. It's a good reminder, and Jana reminded us regularly, right? So are there any other questions? I think we have a hand, but it's an old one. Thank you. Any other questions about the financials? If not, I would look for a motion to approve the Statement C as it's presented.
This is Rick Wynn. I'll make the motion.
This is Jane Geetson, support.
Okay, so I guess I'll ask it as Amanda did before. Is anyone dissenting or withstanding on approving this Schedule C? So with hearing no dissent or abstaining, this motion has passed. Thank you. Eliana, did you have another question you wanted to talk about after that?
Not on the financials. I would be glad to issue a question on the audit after we've had that introduced.
Okay. And so our next item is the audit. Tricia, are you going to present that one too?
I am. Thank you. We did have our FY 2020 audit performed by Plant Moran. We received a clean, unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion you can get. Everything is pretty boilerplate in the letter because the audit went quite smoothly. Boilerplate is good when it comes to things like that. They did note that there was a prior period adjustment done. I know Tim was involved, but I don't know if the board members were aware. For quite a number of years, a piece of Canal Street Park, I believe it was on the TIFA's books when it really should have been on the City of Grand Rapids books. So there was a removal of fixed asset as well as removal of accumulated depreciation on that asset, which is now on the city's books. So that is mentioned in the audit letter. The MD&A, which is the first section of the audit, gives a good overview, very high level of where the authority is at. And you can see that there's quite a strong net position, quite an increase from $1.8 million in 2019 to 2.1 in 2020. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them, or again, to do a little more research and get back to the board members.
And Tricia, just for clarification, that the removal of the asset and the accumulated depreciation would be before these numbers were reported. Is that correct?
Yes, all these numbers are restated as if the asset was no longer on the TIFA's books.
Thank you for clarifying. So, Eliana, did you have a question about this audit?
Yes, I appreciate the explanation around Canal Park, and I'm assuming at the time that was identified, you made sure that there was nothing else similar currently going on and procedures to ensure that doesn't happen again. Is that correct?
Yes, we have definitely have new procedures in place, and actually our financial system helps a lot with that when it comes to fixed assets. This was added to the TIFA's books back in the day when our fixed assets were kept in Excel, which at the time was the way everyone kept their fixed assets because that was what was available to us at the time. It was discovered by people at the city, and talking with Tim, it was not something that the auditors caught. It was something that we found and corrected on our own.
Thank you very much.
All right, are there any other questions about the audit? And we need a motion on this as well, correct? To accept the audit?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so if we can also ask questions later, but after we've made the motion, but can I have a motion to, I guess, accept the audit?
This is Deidre Deering. I'll make a motion to accept.
Thank you.
Jane Geetson, support.
Thank you. So are there any other questions before I ask for a vote? So again, is there anyone that would vote not to accept the audit or abstain? Hearing none, the motion to accept the audit passes. Thank you. All right, the Monroe Avenue Crosswalk is the next item on our agenda. Mark, are you on to share the information about this?
I am.
Great, thank you.
So in your memo, it has some diagrams of or plans of what is being proposed here. This came to us probably a couple weeks ago, just as a inquiry, and trying to figure out how we might fit into this plan. And we thought it would be a good opportunity to have this discussion and really think about some of these pedestrian safety improvements that have been, lacking in the Monroe North area. We haven't really had a lot of opportunities to do these kind of things here, so we thought it was a really good place to forward this and have the discussion. So really what this amounts to is that the area that we're talking about is just a bit south of where Monroe kind of curves by the Coldbrook Water facility, and it's adjacent to Canal Street Park and the river, and the area lacks sanctioned crosswalks. So the nearest one is actually at Mason to the south, and the other one is north at that sort of intersection of Coldbrook, Monroe, and Ottawa. So neither one of them are really conducive to having a direct access to this the park and the river. That hasn't really necessarily always been an issue, but there's the Monroe Community Church is moving into a space this year, and as you probably know, and they are also going to be offering childcare, and because of the space is the site isn't really very big and it's not conducive to having the required outdoor space. They've worked out a deal where they can use Canal Street Park as their required space for that childcare, the outdoor space, and they really need some kind of access, safe access for those children to walk across the street. And then in addition to that, obviously Linear is right there. Linear in the past has expressed concern where some of their patrons do park on the other side of the street and do have difficulty walking across the street or getting across the street, simply because, again, there's not a marked crosswalk, and many folks don't feel comfortable crossing Monroe or any street without having that sanction or marked crosswalk. So this all gives you a little bit of a backstory about what's going on there. The Monroe Community Church actually worked with Progressive AE and Chris Zoll, the former traffic safety engineer at the city, to design this and move it through the city process. It has been approved by the city, and it's in the form that I show you in your packet. Really, what it is it's taking an area in between two medians and making some adjustments to both of those medians to really kind of extend them a bit and just have like a crosswalk in between those two medians as they come together. And that crosswalk would be painted, obviously, and the medians coming together would create a pedestrian refuge point in the middle of Monroe Avenue, so it's a little bit easier to cross for those who don't walk at the clip of many people. And it also will provide tactile warning surfaces and dub down curbs so that it's completely accessible going from the park to the other side of the street or vice versa. So it's a real live sanctioned crosswalk that's been designed per city standards and has been approved by the city. So really where we're at today is that it's been estimated for this thing the construction cost for this to be in the $21,000 range. We typically add a 10% contingency to these things in the event that they might run over a little bit. So that brings us to an estimated cost of not to exceed $23,000 for this investment. And just to clarify a little bit on the memo, after talking with our attorney a bit yesterday, I think that we would like to still obviously ask for the $23,000 authorization, but we really just want to keep it flexible as to who will be paying that to, because we have to make sure that whoever's building it is a contractor that has been approved by the city of Grand Rapids to work within the right of way. And all of this work is within the right of way. So I will be happy to take questions regarding this.
So Mark, just a question or clarification. It appears that once this is constructed, the southbound traffic on Monroe will not be able to make a left-hand turn. Is that correct? So it eliminates the left-hand turn?
Into that driveway that's currently there, but that driveway is part of the community church property.
Okay. Yep.
So it doesn't really, they're making an adjustment to their plan, and they have a different driveway access a little bit south of this. So they don't need both of them.
Okay, good. Just clarifying.
Yep.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mark about this?
I do have a question. I'm wondering with the extension of those curbs coming closer together, if there's going to be any kind of like tree planting or anything like that in those extended medians?
At present, I don't believe that there's a plan for that, and it's likely because I think that the one to the north is expanding the farthest to the south. So the possibility exists that you could probably get a tree in there. I think it's one of those things where we typically, in cases like this, will potentially come back retroactively and add a tree after the project is done if there's enough space there for the tree. And I think that the city forester will work with him to make some decisions about whether or not we can fit another tree in there or not.
Okay, thank you.
But good question.
And Deidre, not to speak for Monroe North, the Monroe North Business Association, but I know that they have regularly planted annuals in that area. So I would hope that the project would include the extension of any underground irrigation system for the grass and plants that might be planted in that extended median.
That's a great question.
That is a good question.
And we are planning on planting again this year. So, Mark, do you know when construction is supposed to start?
In the spring.
Okay.
So I think that what we've been told at currently is probably, April, May. Everybody tends to, in the wintertime, shoot for their spring construction to start in April. Oftentimes it doesn't work out that way because of weather or even schedule, because everybody's doing it at once. So I think I would expect or anticipate that there'll be some work being done on this site in April, weather dependent. And I think there's quite a bit of site work that the church is doing on their own private property as well as this. So you'll see some activity there, I suspect, in April.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for Mark about this project?
I guess if we're concerned, this is Rick Wynn, if we're concerned about irrigation, should we add that to the motion?
I think that would be good.
I think so. I'm not sure what the irrigation situation is in the median currently, or what it would take to add more irrigation to that median. What we're putting this into is a streetscape improvement line item within the budget, and that had appropriated $50,000 within the fiscal year 21 budget. So there's room to do that kind of thing. So it might be that instead of asking for the 23, we might say not to exceed 30, and that should easily cover irrigation if it becomes an issue.
Is everyone else okay with that?
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's
Yes.
prudent.
So I'll make the motion if, this is Rick Wynn again.
I'll support.
And just for clarification, that is not to exceed 30,000, including the irrigation.
Correct.
All right, are there any other questions before I call for the vote? All right, if you choose to abstain or vote nay, please speak now. Right, without hearing any, this motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mark, you're going to take this one too, right?
I am, yes. This is the first time that we're bringing a Winter Ready grant request to this body. Obviously, you haven't met since the summertime, so we haven't really had the opportunity to do so, but there's been quite a bit of activity over the course of the last few months, as the DDA board is aware. And so I try to summarize that in the memo that was in your packet regarding this. It was a late addition that I think we put in on Monday. So hopefully you've had a little bit of an opportunity to review it. Just to give you a little bit of background, back in October 14th of 2020, the DDA authorized the initial Winter Ready grant and seeded it with $200,000 to essentially support downtown businesses during their COVID-19 recovery. And it was really intended to assist those businesses with outdoor seating, activation, related expansion of business activity within the public realm, primarily during the winter months. And we were really, what it has essentially circled around in terms of funding is materials like canopies, tents, heaters, lighting in some cases that really allow the operation to continue of primarily restaurants, although it was open for retailers as well. And it became critical during that period of time simply because we had an extended shutdown where there was not indoor dining. So many of these restaurants were able to take advantage of this to keep themselves open during a relatively tough period. And then on December 9th, the DDA authorized an additional $175,000 for the Winter Ready grant. And that brought our total up to $375,000. And this is really just because of the amount of interest that we've received and the amount of restaurants that are actually using this and making it work for their outdoor expansion. And then today, we actually got an authorization from the DDA board for another $250,000, which we anticipate will cover the remaining aspects of the various businesses who are queued up either in permitting or awaiting installation of their structures and heaters. So that brings the overall total to $625,000 for the grant funding. As of last week, when this memo was written, we had a total of about $300,000 of funding support so far for various businesses. There's 23 businesses that have been funded. 21 have functioning structures on the ground. I'm not sure if we have that map available, Amanda, where we can show some of those things. Yeah, so I think this map that Marion produced in our office is really helpful for you to all see where these various businesses are. Obviously, the column in the red are the ones that are installed, and then there's some that are a work in progress. So they're either getting installed shortly within the next couple of weeks, or a few of them are still in permit at the city level. So we have to permit all of these with the city before they actually get installed. So that's an ongoing effort. But you can begin to see the ones that are sprinkled around Monroe North. And really what the crux of this memo is about is focusing on those ones in the Monroe North. So I'm giving you a lot of this information just to attempt to bring you up to speed on sort of where we are and where we anticipate that we will be over the course of the next couple of months. In the memo, I mentioned that we anticipate another 15 to 20 businesses that will be requesting grant funding, and it's just interesting to note that we received about 9 additional funding requests yesterday for these grants. All 9 of those were anticipated in that 15 to 20 that we were looking at in this memo. So really what that amounts to is we've probably got about under 10 or 11 that are left that we would anticipate having to fund over the course of the next month or so once those permits get approved. All of that said, there are 5 businesses in the Monroe North Tifa: Sandy Point Beach House, City Built Brewing Company, Linear, Field and Fire, and Garage Bar. Obviously, if you've been up and about in the area, you notice that City Built's got their tent up. They've got a heater going. We're supplying them with propane. Linear is up. Field and Fire has had greenhouses installed for, I think, over 2 months now. She was one of the first ones in and had the stuff implemented. And Garage Bar was also another one that was one of the first ones in, where they built a structure out over the sidewalk. So really what this memo and this request recommendation is for the Monroe North Tifa to consider allocating some funds to cover these 5 businesses and alleviate a little bit of the money that the DDA has invested over the course of the last few months. And now we've got a total of $625,000 allocated from the DDA. So these businesses, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. These businesses have 3 of these businesses have already been funded. So City Built, Linear, and Field and Fire, and those are outlined in the memo for a total of $46,062. So those have been reimbursed or paid to those businesses. We're seeking a reimbursement from the Monroe North Tifa to the DDA in the amount of $46,000 and $46,062. The other 2 businesses have not yet been funded. That's Sandy Point Beach House and Garage Bar. We received a request from Garage Bar late last week. He spent a total of $40,000 on his in structure, and we are recommending that we pay him $20,000. And just to backtrack a little bit in some of the details of this, the DDA has set sort of a policy for these expenditures. So staff can approve up to $15,000 per business. The DDA will typically approve up to $20,000 per business, with exceptions being any business that is, or any structure that's supporting multiple owned businesses. So City Built is actually a sort of welcome center. The various businesses around it use it. Field and Fire has overflow into it. Garage Bar has overflow into it. We've even seen people from Wolfgang Puck's bringing their brunch to that space and hanging out in it. Not Wolfgang Puck's, Wolfgang's in Easttown. Sorry, I misspoke there. And then another example of that would be the Downtown Market, which is serving multiple businesses. So they also receive the $26,000 amount. So both Sandy Point and Garage Bar, we're recommending that there's an authorization from you specifically for $20,000 for both of them. So that would be a total amount of $40,000, bringing the overall amount that we would be requesting for is $86,000.62. So I think I've tried to outline sort of the history of this and what we're asking for. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them or clarify anything.
So Mark, this is Sean Beal. Thank you. Yes. I guess I wanted to add to your comments that, you know, I believe if this group were asked ahead of time, we would have wholeheartedly supported this, especially, well, there's always been the question of how long, right? This type of the social distancing and the need to adapt to the COVID pandemic will be. But if we were asked this back in December or back in September, I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I suspect this group would have wholeheartedly supported this effort. So I wanted to start by thanking the DDA. So we haven't met since June, right? But I wanted to start by thanking the DDA for stepping in and being able to react quickly for these groups that needed this assistance to continue to keep their doors open. So thank you to those on from the DDA. I think this is entirely appropriate for us to reimburse them for our area. And I support the ask for the last two, the Sandy Point and Garage Bar. So that's my comments. I'll open it up to the floor for any questions for Mark.
I just have a comment and then a quick question. I really appreciate all the work that the DDA DGRI has done to support our businesses to adapt to these really trying times. And my hope is that we continue to see these outside spaces available all year long and that they can really help our small businesses not just survive this pandemic, but thrive afterwards and expand. My one question, and I texted this to Tim, Mark, have you reached out to Eastern Kill? I know I've gone over there a couple times to grab some takeout stuff. I know they've had some struggles with their outside space, and I'm just curious if we've reached out to them to try to help.
Yeah, good question. I actually, they had fallen off my radar because we hadn't heard from them in quite a long time. I know that between Andy Guy and myself, we had talked to them a couple of times very early on, probably in October and November, but I haven't heard from them yet. So it might be worthwhile for us just to touch base with them and see where they sort of are. And we have had a few businesses that have sort of were really interested at the beginning and then I think stopped moving forward once that state order came out where things got shut down, which was shortly after when we announced the original grant. So there's been a lot of hiccups in this and we've had a lot of folks just kind of disappear and then come back. So we will reach out again to them.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
So, Rick, I'm taking a cue from your last motion and wondering if this group would be willing to consider a little bit of an expansion on this to, I guess, approve additional funds if others come with merit and meet the criteria that has been set out for them, in addition to the ask that was on the memo. Throwing that out as a suggestion to the group.
What would you think? Another 20,000, Mark, or what are you?
I think we are averaging about 13,500 to 14,000 per business. You know, I think that the only business that I can foresee is Eastern Kiln, because they are the only one who have actually reached out during any period of time. There's obviously a few more businesses up there, but honestly, they have not come forward at all. We've had a couple of conversations with Rockies, but they, I think, really didn't have an interest in pursuing anything. So 20,000 more is probably safe at this point. And if something comes up within the next month, we can always have another conversation later. But we're really seeing, I think, the tail end of this now. I don't foresee, or we don't foresee, a lot more folks coming forward that we haven't heard from already. And in fact, some of our restaurant tours downtown are already looking to the spring. So that's the next thing on their minds.
My other question is, thinking of the DDA, do we need, and maybe Amanda and Tim, do we need 4 different motions, or can we combine these, or how do you want to work this?
Personally, in my opinion, because of some of the way that some of those motions were set up originally with the DDA to have a limit of 20,000 or 15,000 per staff approval, the TIFA has not done that previously. I think all of these can be looped into one motion, as long as everyone understands the points of them.
Okay, so I'll make the motion to approve these amounts with an additional $20,000 should another restaurant or business request the same.
Yeah, I'll support that.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Any last questions
Thank you.
from the group? So I will ask if for Rick's motion, if anyone dissents or if anyone wants to abstain, please speak now. Hearing none, the motion is passed. Thank you.
Just a comment I'm thinking of, Tim, maybe somehow we publish or announce this to the public of what the DDA and Monroe North Tifa are doing to help these businesses and how many have signed up. I think it's pretty impressive, the number of businesses that have actually taken advantage of this. Is it,
Yeah,
I know
that's a good point.
it's public meetings, but
there's been a little bit of media just over the course of these approvals, so we have seen that. I think a summary media advisory is probably in order at this point, particularly as we're kind of moving in, fingers crossed, into warmer weather here in the next few weeks. But yeah, I think that's a good point. I think this data that we pulled together, and as Mark mentioned, Marion on our team helped kind of graphically illustrate, is a pretty impactful story to show, in addition to just the overall investment. So yeah, I think that's a good point, and likely this is the time to do that. So we'll work on that to get something out in the next week.
I like your weather optimism too, by the way.
The sun was out at about 7:30 this morning, so I think it's gone now. But
yeah.
So we all like the optimism, Tim.
Right.
Tim, would you take the next item on the agenda and give your report?
I would be glad to. And I wanted to kind of start with a note about one of the things that Mark mentioned there, which was that we are starting to organize already to think about spring and the social zone deployments, and really just sort of continuing to lean into those interventions that went out last spring and summer. So we have a series of meetings with the corridors and neighborhood areas that have social zones installed currently. The Monroe North meeting is on the calendar for next Wednesday, so February 17th at 2 p.m. So Mark, Andy, myself, and others on the team will be involved in those. So that's another chance for us to remind everyone about the work, but also just continue to underline the importance of business support and doing these interventions during our COVID time. So wanted to make sure I highlighted that. Also wanted to point out that I know we haven't met for a number of months since June, but I do expect that we'll have meetings both in March and April. So wanted to put that on everyone's radar now. We'll make sure you have calendar invitations that go out this week. In March, we're expecting some of the river governance recommendations to be coming forward, and we'll give you an update on the continuation of that moving into the next fiscal year. And then, of course, April is when we will be into budgets. So we'll have some need to meet in the next couple months, and some important initiatives moving forward. Two other things I wanted to highlight. One, I assume most of you are aware, but development projects in the TIFA are continuing to happen. The Integrated Architecture Office has been moving along really well and is slated to open this spring. Hopefully you've seen that recently over on Ottawa, but if not, I encourage you to go take a look. And then I know at the Monroe North Business Association meeting on Friday, Hannah Berry will be there to talk about one of the projects that she's been helping to initiate at the 975 Ottawa space. That's still far, or I should say it still has a ways to go before it's brought to fruition, but it's encouraging to see some more development activity happen in the TIFA boundary. Beyond just some of the public infrastructure that we know is going to happen up there with the river. Last thing to highlight before I take questions is World of Winter. So hopefully you've had a chance to come down and see that. The festival itself is actually going to be extended into March at this point because the Hibikozo installations at Anabawan, as well as some projection mapping down at the Civic Theater will be going on into March. But we do have new installations that are actually even going in this week. So the lamplighter installation will be at the skate park at 555 Monroe. And then Valentine's, of course, is kicking into full gear on Friday. And that's your yearly reminder that Valentine's Day is on Sunday. So if you haven't taken the necessary actions for that, please do. But we've had a lot of great feedback. We've seen really good foot traffic on our pedestrian counters. We have heard anecdotally that's translated into support for businesses. But we are, there's a lot going on there, and we just hope that people are coming out and exploring downtown, even given the cold weather. I believe that is all I had for my report, but happy to take questions or hear any comments.
Hey Tim, this is Eliana Bootson. I wanted to check in on a couple of items that were in the minutes, and maybe there have been some announcements in the organizational communications and I've forgotten them, but update on the Dash Sunday and late night service and the bike infrastructure installation progress.
The Dash is back running at its normal schedule. So there were some shutdowns early in the spring and into the early part of the winter, but it is back running full service. We're going to be having conversations with the city and Rapid as we move into the next fiscal year to make sure that we're all on the same page with how that service is being operated. We'll of course talk about that with the TIFA and DDA during the budget cycle, but it is back running. I'm not sure I caught your last question. Was it related to the infrastructure?
Yep, the bike infrastructure. I think it was bike racks and such.
Yeah, Mark, do you have any updates on those conversations with Mobile GR? If you're still on the call.
I don't think he is.
Oh, did Mark drop off? We'll get an update on that. I believe the infrastructure projects have mostly been put on hold as the city's navigating their budget process, but we'll look into that and get an update out to the board.
Great, I would appreciate that. I'd absolutely encourage timing that up for coordination with the bike pilot, that the bikes will be arriving in the spring for Mobile DR.
Good questions, thank you.
Any other questions for Tim? All right, then I'd ask for any public comment. I'm not sure who all is on the call, Amanda, but if we have any public comment, please speak now. All right, we'll move to board member discussion. Is there anything the group would like to discuss before we close the meeting?
Eliana, one more time. So if you recall, I work for Neighbors of Belknap Lookout, which is the neighborhood that encompasses Monroe North. And so I have put a link in the chat to our stakeholder survey and would certainly welcome any and all of you taking that for us as we begin our strategic planning process this spring.
Thank you. I had a comment, just Eliana had encouraged us to invest in the area, and that's what we're, I think the latter part of our meeting today was certainly doing that. So thank you all for your support for these projects. And I know we will have more projects, and our intention, which we've stated for a while now, is as the river is activated and the large project to activate the river takes place, that we will have support for that. And I know we still intend to do that. It's not happening as fast as any of us want, but we still will be there to support it. All right. Well, thank you all for joining today. Appreciate your time and your commitment to our committee. You guys have a great day. The meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, Sean.
You bet.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sean.
See ya.
Sean, have a good day.
You too.